We might have a few more show up here, but it's about 5 after now, so we can get started. So just to let you guys know, all the lines are muted. If you want to ask questions, I'll show you on the next slide where you can do that, but you can type them in, and Dave and I will be answering them for you today, and I think we might end up getting Todd on the line as well. But if you guys can hear me, if you can raise the little hand icon there, that's going to be in your GoToMeeting screen there to the right-hand side, just so I can make sure you all can hear me. All right, it looks like the hands are coming up. If it's too loud or too quiet or anything, let me know as well by typing into the message box there. And if if there's some reason you can't hear me or the audio is breaking up or your PC is not getting as loud, you can click over on the right-hand side there and say to use mic and speakers, or you can click in and there's a phone number that you can call in for. I'm going to lower all the hands now because it looks like most of you can hear me. So yeah, so there's going to be a question box there. And we're also recording this webinar, so if for some reason you can't make it or another coworker wants to view this later, it will be up on the What's New or the blog section of our website as a YouTube video. And just a little bit about ShopWare here. I'm sure most of you guys already know after seeing the names on the list. It's all guys that I've probably talked to before. I haven't updated this slide from our in-person rollouts, but Chris Kozel is no longer with ShopWare now. He's actually working for Mastercam Corporate. I'm going to be handling all of our inside sales as Matt Sump here. Todd's our Wisconsin sales guy. Kim is taking over my old position, so she'll be handling maintenance sales and training sales and current customer support and things like that. And our support staff, you guys might not notice some of the names on there. Ryan joined our team last year, and Peter just joined a couple months ago, and Sarah is our new front office person. So when you call in, be sure to say hi to Sarah and welcome her to the team here. And as always, on the right-hand side here, our general emails and also our website address. And I was just going to pop over to our website real quick to show you guys a couple things. I don't know if everyone's taking advantage of some of the things we have on there, but on the front page of our website, I'll always have a link here on how to get the latest version of Mastercam. And as you might have saw in some of the email blasts, our password for all these pages, so if you go to the download page, it might ask you for a password. Our password's always going to be ShopWare and then whatever the current version is. So right now it's ShopWare X8, all lowercase, and you can use that to download Mastercam. Or we also have some other pages on our website. So if you go up to support here and go to downloads, we have this protected downloads page. And I know a lot of guys like to download the student copy of Mastercam for use at home or, as a viewer. Just note that just like the regular X8, it's 64-bit only now, but you can go in here and download it. We also have some training materials available on this page, and I know a lot of guys always ask us about if they want to edit their own post and things like that. We have the full documentation of all the Mastercam posting language on that page as well, which I'm sure Norbert probably likes me talking about. But so just a little bit over the new Mastercam, what's new and what's come out in there over the past version is as you may have noticed, we've updated the interface to kind of give it a cleaner look and kind of what they call a flat design where it's, less on gradients and more just, straight colors and things like that. We've added a bunch of new solid modeling tools that I'll be going over, as well as some usability and different ways that the interface has changed from what menus are viewable and where you can dock the menus and how it looks and things like that. Dave will be covering some of the high-speed toolpath options in both the 2D and 3D. The main part where we've updated this is on the 2D, as far as having to create additional geometry and drawing areas where you don't want to cut and things like that, where now you just pick on the model of where you want to cut and it makes things a lot easier. And in addition to those, we've updated the Dynamic Toolpaths as far as on the 3D side of how they're being used and implemented on how they cut, and the different strategies available on the 2D side. We've condensed them now to make it a simpler way to click on what strategy you want to use, as opposed to having 20 different options. You just have a couple and you just pick your strategy from there. We've also added some quality improvements. We've redone the workspace, so when you're transitioning from X7 to X8, about the only thing that you're going to have to redo is your toolbars. And so since we've added a lot of new toolbars and icons and things like that, it's a good opportunity to kind of set up the interface to how you want to use it and customize it from there. So if you guys have already installed X8, you might notice how the graphics have changed. We basically rewrote the graphics engine from the ground up on how the shading works and solid selection and just how the geometry is displayed on the screen, so it can really take advantage of newer processors, more RAM, and having a good graphics card. So what I'm going to cover here is just some of the general system improvements, from how the software looks to migrating from X7 to X8 and things like that. So this slide is just more of what I've already been talking about here, but we've worked on the graphics. The customized dialog box has changed on how you can set up the different toolbars and really make the system custom tailored to you, and also on how you're migrating the software from 7 to 8 and changing that, because we got a lot of complaints before, and us as a dealer, we're always relaying your guys' gripes to corporate on how we can make your lives easier and improving your experience moving from version to version and making that as easy as possible. So some of the things just from the general system is, you might notice the view manager is now called the plane manager, because this is handling all the different planes that you can select in the software. I also have a note here about hotfix 2. If you already have X8 installed, if I hop over to one of my X8 programs here, under the help menu here, there's going to be an update Mastercam utility, and if you have it set to automatically update, you should get a notification here in your bottom right bar that there's a new Mastercam version available, but you can always go here and check manually. So since we redid the planes and how they work in X8, there were a couple things that they had to improve, so an update actually came out at the beginning of the week to address some of those items. And you can now also, with the hotfix 2, when X8 first came out, you weren't able to edit the default planes, but you can edit those now as you please. So some of as I was talking about the new workspace files, now that we're in this new format, it's going to be able to go from version to version, but it basically contains all those separate files that were in X7. So before, you had a toolbar file, a key mapping file. All of those are now combined into the same interface. And what a lot of people don't know is you can also bring your key mapping file over once you get your new toolbars set up. So some of the first things that we do in here, if you go right-click anywhere in the open area and go to the Customize menu, you have your toolbar customization. The context menu is how you set up what your right-click menu looks like. But then if you go over to the key mapping file here, you can say import and bring over your key mapping from X7 or any other previous version if you're still, a big hotkeys user. And then another thing on this tab that a lot of people don't notice is how we set the large icons has now been moved to this menu. And I know that's one of the first things I did when I installed X8. I could not see those new icons at all, so I just switched it to large icons. Another thing here is a lot of people notice on the left-hand side I have my toolpaths and solids up at the top. When you first install X8, these menus are going to appear at the bottom down here. And, I'm a creature of habit. I want it to be how it was for me in X7. So you just switch this from bottom to top, restart Mastercam, and now all these menus appear to where you're used to seeing them there in your operations manager. Do we have any questions yet, Dave, or anything? So a little bit about file migration. There's now two different modes for moving from older versions to X8. What I always say is if you're going right from 7 to 8 and you're using the normal file locations, you just want to use the basic migration. It has everything pre-set up. It's just a couple clicks and you can get everything transferred over right from 7 to 8. If you're going from an older version, you're going to want to use the advanced utility of the migration. So if you go to the migration wizard here, you'll have the basic, and that's what I was talking about before. You know, it just strictly migrates your shared and MCAMX folders into the new X8 locations. If you do have custom locations, you can define them here, but if you're using the custom ones, I always say use the advanced utility because you can really kind of get into the nitty-gritty here of how files are being transferred over and what's being moved over. You have your options of different file types, what version you're coming from. So, you know, if you're coming from 6 or older, you can just say, I want to move files from that version, but you also have the ability to move, you know, multiple versions worth of files over in one sort of setup. And then this Finish tab here is basically just going to give you a summary of everything you have set up. You know, before you click go, you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row and aren't, you know, missed a set of files or something like that. So some of the improvements we've made on the design side of the software and also a lot in the solid modeling tools is we've updated how the GNOMON works in Mastercam. So if you guys were like me, the X7 GNOMON had the kind of XYZ, the XYZ listed on here, and you know you didn't really know where to click on how to move different features around or edit how the geometry was being displayed. So if I go back to my Mastercam here, and I just say, okay, I got this chain here, and I want to, you know, move it or rotate it, I just go to Xform Dynamic, and I pick what I want to move. Say OK. And now this is the new GNOMON here. So I can really place this wherever I want because it's relative to the geometry I have selected. So let's say I just plop it, you know, right in the middle here. Now all these sliders now are dynamic based off of the axes that you're trying to move. And it's always going to give you a preview of what that area that you're selecting on. So you know, if I'm clicking on this part, it's going to rotate about. If I'm clicking down here, it's just going to move it, you know, in the X axes. And that slider has this dynamic slider down here, and it's relative to how far you are zoomed in. So if I zoom way in here, you know, see I'm getting, you know, like 100,000 and things like that. But if I zoom out, it'll scale it back to those values. But anytime there's that little tan box right there where it says 0.0 inches, anytime that box is up, you can key in a value without having, you know, click anywhere. You just type in the value you want to hit. So if I want to move it a half inch, I can just say 0.5, and if I hit enter once, that's going to give me a preview of what I was typing in. So let's say I didn't want 0.5, I wanted 0.75. I can hit enter again, and then it doesn't accept my selection until I hit enter a second time, and now that geometry's moved. And there's also, it's kind of hard to see here, but if I go back into the dynamic Xform before I go into a specific function like moving the geometry there, you have the option to switch between geometry editing and actually editing your axes. So if I want to rotate this around, it's now in axes mode. So it's not moving the geometry, I'm just moving where my plane is. So it makes it an easy way to set your planes from before. So if I want to move this around, I can pick this and it'll snap to different faces of what my like Z0 is. See how that blue arrow sticks up based on whatever face I'm on? It just makes it an easy way to set planes on different sides of the part, and then you can select the center ball here to then assign your 0 point. And then I can update here, you know, do I want that to be my C plane or just my T plane, and so forth. So any of you guys with the solid modeling option, may have noticed if you're already using X8, the menus look quite different. This is going to be kind of the direction we're going for all the menus in the software. Everything's going to be contained in kind of a, a basic and advanced setup. They did a lot of usability testing. Mastercam, as part of this push to the new interface and menus, they hired what they call a user interface engineer, and they did a lot of testing over at corporate and having the beta testers. If any of you guys are on the beta program, they were, they had the ability to log, how many mouse clicks you're using in a session, what the total distance your mouse was moving in a session, and features that guys weren't typically using, they would kind of get them out of the way and move them to that advanced tab, so you're not getting a menu that's cluttered with a lot of things that you don't typically click on. So we've added a lot of things in the solids as far as actually editing them and creating the solids. You can create multiple solids within the same operation. There's now solid edge awareness on anywhere in the solid. So before you'd have to create curves on all edges in order for it to know okay, what's the midpoint of this line in the solid. Whereas now it just knows based on that edge of the solid of what those features are that a user might want to click on. And you'll see in the option here, it's that snap to auto cursor position, so as far as intersections and midpoints and things like that are concerned. So as far as actually creating the solids, you have the same options as before. They just simplified as I was talking about a few minutes ago, as far as allowing to create multiple solids at the same time. So before, if I wanted to create, let's say I needed to extrude both of these solids, before you'd have to go out, create a new solid, go back in, perform the same function again, whereas now if you just go to solid extrude, I just pick the chains I want to extrude, and I can pick as many as I want, and then move them up by a specified distance here. So if I get these centered on the screen, and just like the dynamic GNOMON, all of these other features are dynamic now as well. So you have the slider bar to set it. You can always type in a value and go from there. So one of the cool features I noticed they added in here is called the split solid face. So you can basically, without having to draw additional geometry and going off a print or something like that, being able to edit the solid dynamically without having set up your different planes. It just knows based on the face that you want to select and how you want to edit and split the solid up. So the one I have in here, let me see, I got too many files open. Is this one it? Yeah, this one's it. So let's say I have a print from a customer and I need to create a solid block, and I can use this geometry on the right in order to split it. So I can go into my solids commands here and say extrude, just like before. We can enter this up, pick it. Let's say I want to just make it 50. This is in metric, so it's 50 millimeters. Now that I have my solid created, if I want to split this face or create anything like that, I can go to my model prep tool here and say split solid face, and I'm still in my top plane. So if I go to my top view here, it's still set to the top. I don't have to assign this plane on the right. But what I can do is just say, okay, which is the face I want to split? And now anytime I'm doing any of these direct solid modeling commands, it doesn't necessarily care what the history is, so it's going to pop up and ask me, okay, do you want to remove the solid history, because I'm directly editing off the solid model. And then I just pick the chain where I want to use to split the face, and you can see it gives you a preview here of how it's going to split that solid. So I can say okay, and now these solid bodies are split, and so that was the geometry based off of my print. I can just use the model prep commands and say, okay, I want to get rid of this face. And it basically splits that solid to how it was based off of the print. Or before you'd have to do an extrude cut, go into another command, and you can really do anything you want then based off of that. So part of what I was talking about before of the solid edge awareness, it just allows you to select on the model without having to create wireframe, and you can make positioning a lot easier. So if I go back to that part I was just in, if I want to say move this face back to a certain position, or let's say this one here, now I want to turn on my snap to auto cursor position. Now if I want to drag this back and I don't know what that specific distance is and I just want to pick it up off the print, I can just select here off of that geometry saying, okay, it moved it back 42 millimeters or whatever it was. And you can also now use that dynamic GNOMON I was talking about as far as moving geometry or using those solid features as a way to edit really anything on the solid. So basically what this allows you to do is you can use a reference pointer off the existing model in order to really edit the features however you please without having, know a specific angle or having to read off the print. You can just know, if I want to rotate this whole 15 degrees, I can reference it off that point, use the dynamic GNOMON, and just rotate that feature 15 degrees without having to, really get into it and edit the feature directly. So a little bit on that solid edge awareness, I'll show you guys some here in that file. So it kind of takes care of a lot of different functions that you would have to use before as far as editing the solid's concerned. And I'm just going to do this real quick here because I know you guys want to see the toolpath part. Oops, if I could. So say I just have a basic, if I just have a basic solid here and I want to say move this face up to that other face, before you'd have to create a wireframe or know what that extrusion distance would be. So you can just go to the push-pull here, say I want to snap to auto cursor positions, pick that face, and now I can just snap it to that edge, and it knows without having to merge it. It doesn't create separate bodies. It knows that since it's on the same plane as that part of the solid, it's now the same solid face. Very powerful tools. So while Dave's getting set up here, I am just going to let this video play. This is actually creating that solid. You saw some of the features I was working off of, but it's, Mastercam, what they call, a 2-minute solid model. As you know, I don't know how long this would take to make in previous versions, but it's just kind of, a combination of all those different features that I talked about, splitting solid faces, using the direct solid modeling tools that are now in there to really create solids quickly and easily. And these are really handy tools as well, if you're getting models from customers or models from engineering where you need to make quick changes on the fly to the model in order to, really get the part ready for machining is what our designing has always been about. Ready, Dave? All right. Hang on, I'm going to pass the mic over to Dave and switch the presenter over, and we'll be ready in just a second.
Alright guys, just want to get going here in a second. We're just changing over screens. So I'm going to be showing you guys the 2D high-speed, 3D high-speed, multi-axis, and turning enhancements that came out in here in X8. So to start off, I just want to make sure that my screen is being showed. So Matt, can you confirm that for me? One second. All right, good deal. So the screen is being shown, so we're good to go. So I'm going to start off with the 2D high-speed side. There's a lot of new enhancements that we came out with this side. The first thing you guys are all going to notice is we've consolidated our menus. You guys are used to in the X7 prior, when you go to the Toolpaths pull-down menu, you fly out the 2D high-speed. You use a lot of different options in there. Dynamic core, dynamic area, dynamic rest, and such. It's now been consolidated down to just dynamic mill, dynamic contour, area, and blend and peel. What that's going to do for you guys, it's going to simplify the workflow quite a bit. It's also, since it's combining the operations, it's all just different toggle switches you can turn on and off inside the toolpaths. So I'd actually consolidated about 6 toolpaths down to about 2. Now I know everybody's going to probably ask this question: what happens to all my old files? All your old files are updatable, so all the files, once you bring them into X8, it's going to automatically convert those toolpaths to the new style with just the dynamic area or just area. So you're not going to lose any of your options and not going to have to recreate anything. So with combining everything, some extra features that have been added in there is the new style chaining. I know you guys are all probably like, you know, what could you guys do different? It was working great to begin with. Well, inside of here now, you guys have been used to just machining regions and avoidance regions. Now added 2 extra categories, the air regions and the containment boundaries. We've also enhanced the machining regions to now utilize the stock setup page. So anybody that's actually setting up your stock ahead of time, when you're doing like a dynamic core, instead of you actually having to draw a box or a cylinder to represent your stock, it now can pull the outer boundary of your stock setup page and utilize that as the machining region. Just trying to save a couple extra clicks and some extra geometry from being created. The new chaining. You know, here's the new menu. If you guys can keep seeing my screen here. So it's all consolidated. So when you go into dynamic area or dynamic mill, it comes up with this, and you could just really easily come in here and choose. I want to machine from the inside or from the outside. That toggles it from doing area or core. Once you get in further inside the toolpaths, that's where you can even turn on the rest roughing in both area and core mode. So it's once again saving a couple extra clicks and having to change over to different toolpaths. Like I said, we also added 2 extra style chains that you can chain to kind of customize this toolpath even more so. The first one is going to be the containment regions. Just like in the 3D world, it's going to contain the toolpath within that zone only. So it's going to do exactly what it says. It's going to contain the tool. And then you get air regions. That's going to be utilizing, you know, whatever chain you select. It's going to basically treat it as an empty void that it doesn't need a machine. Could go and plunge in there and can cross through there, but it doesn't need to go and machine that. So I'm actually going to toggle over to a part over here. So a little bit of a complex part, a lot of different features going on this one. I'm going to show you a couple different toolpaths. So the first one, just like what you guys are used to, is going to be a dynamic core, starting from the outside, working its way in, machining out all the different zones, and going through there. Now, all we actually selected on this was, for an avoidance region, would be the outer profile of my part. We didn't actually select any machining region or anything. It automatically takes the max extents for my stock. Makes it a little bit quicker. Dynamic area mill, just doing a cavity, so selected the machining region being this face on the floor, and said start from the inside, pocket that out. Quick and easy. For extra customization, things that you can do, this one example, what we're doing is actually selecting machining region being this face, and then we're telling it avoid these boxes so it doesn't wrap around the edge, doesn't wrap onto anywhere on the inside here. And that's just going to go and clean up just in case there was an extra lip from where it roughed out. So you can customize it pretty easily. You can do the same thing with this face. Drew a circular type of feature that would represent this top lip and just said, here, machine this lip, this top face. And it's getting machined from the outside, working its way in, just cleaning up what material was left. And this last one, where we actually took and said, okay, well, this face is my machining region, but then I can actually select this, the slot that's already been cut out from my dynamic core mill and say that that is an air region. Now, in prior versions, you could select that as an avoidance region, and it wouldn't cut in there. But it also wouldn't start inside of here. So it would, have to helix down into an area where there was material, be a little harder on the tool, waste a little bit extra time, versus now it's going to plunge inside that air region and do a nice smooth entry onto the part. It can be quicker, easier, and pretty simple to chain. So it's just 2 chains, once again, machining region being the face, and an air region being this loop. Quick and easy. It's going to save quite a bit of machining time as well. Another thing that we've added to the 2D high-speed toolpaths is our first pass offset. This is in all of your dynamic mill toolpaths. What this really can get into utilized for is, let's just say my stock is irregular. Maybe I'm setting this up as a 2x2 for an inch square for a stock, but maybe I had Ryan go saw cut this, and he wasn't that accurate with it. So I'm not sure exactly what that extra material is. So what I can do is offset the first pass, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so, and I can even reduce the feed rate on that first pass. What that allows it to do is slowly go through that first pass, goes through the first loop, and then once it gets through that first pass, it's going to speed up the feed rate to the proper feed rate to cut when it's a known size material. Just trying to be a little bit safer here, and accommodate for some irregularities on the stock size and shape. It's a nice handy feature to utilize in there. Just skip through that video there. Do a video of this being machined. So if I actually just let that run through, this is actually, I believe, run at the local Kuma dealer over here. This was a 4130 steel that we cut. You can see just working from the outside, working its way inward, shaving away that material. Nice even load on that tool at all times. Not sure if you guys can actually hear it, but one of the nice things about these toolpaths is, for anybody that has, really been out on the shop floor, what a good cut sounds like. So when you actually hear these things go, you'll know right away that this is a good cut versus, when you take a tool and you'd be just screaming and pinching in the corners and hearing that machine chirp. I know it's not the greatest to play over the internet, so I'm going to get past this video. So other things that we've really done is done a lot of testing for, where are some good feed rates, spindle speeds. A lot depends on, the quality of your tooling and what material you're still running. This was for one of our tests that we did a 1048 steel. If you're doing traditional style, more of a 50% step over, yeah, you're going to be a slower feed rate, slower spindle speed, kind of more conventional out of the machinist handbook. When you get into utilizing the radial chip thinning, you can really back down that step over and speed up your RPM and your feed per tooth. The further you back down that step over, the faster we can get that feed and speed going in there, and really just take that that cycle time and just drop it tremendously. So I really urge you guys to evaluate how we can utilize these toolpaths onto your parts, and any questions, don't hesitate to give us a call or come in for classes. All right, Matt, do we have any questions so far?
None that I see. Everyone's pretty quiet.
Okay. And now I'm going to keep going on to our 3D side. So for the 3D side, you know, what you guys saw for some of the dynamic motion, that's all been transferred into there as well. But even more so is cycle time, or regeneration time. You know, it's never fast enough. Everybody can always, you know, use the software to go faster. So as you guys have noticed in X6 and X7, there's been speed improvements on regeneration times, utilizing more and more of the multi-core processing. You know, management has gone and bought you guys all these really nice fancy computers, so we might as well utilize it fully. So now in X8, added multi-core processing to your Z step-down based toolpaths, so that'd be your waterlines, that'd be your more conventional core rough, area rough toolpaths, as well as your horizontal finishing toolpaths. So it's going to make life a lot easier and a lot quicker. You can see this part that we actually did a time study on Matt's laptop over here, a little bit slower laptop, so mine probably go a little bit faster. X7 took about 48 seconds, and we cut that time in half. He only had 2 processors on his computer. Other enhancements that we've gotten into with the 3D surfacing toolpaths kind of dives into a little bit with the multi-axis toolpaths as well. So I'm not sure how many of you guys actually have 5-axis machines, but one of the big things that everybody's always looking for when actually have a 5-axis machine is just tilt away when it needs to avoid a crash. Stay vertical, but that allows you to shorten that tool length up, make it short and stubby, nice and rigid, but then apply a holder and tilt away only when it needs to. It might not even need, you know, full 5-axis, except for the fact that I just want to shorten that tool length up. So what we did is inside of your surface finishing toolpaths, your surface high-speed finishing toolpaths, is we added more to our collision checking. So inside of, you know, of all your toolpaths, when you go to the holder page, we can go and associate a holder and associate this stick out, the tool projection. So if I take that hybrid toolpath and I backplot this, everything looks good so far from the top, and as I get down, you'll start noticing that my holder is going to be inside my part. So I got some crashes going on here. Now I know the typical way if you don't have multi-axis is you just take that tool and stick it out farther and kind of slow down the feeds and deal with it. The other thing you can also do, and if you don't have a 5-axis, is just trim away the gouge points. So if I take that by just taking out the gouge points, runs great, and then it's going to skip a section. So you can see this whole section right in here. That tool did not go and finish that area off. Now I could always come in with another tool, another toolpath just to clean up just that area, but at least now I know I'm not gouging. What we've added in X8 is now the ability to do a tilt to avoid a gouge. So I can tell the max tilt away angle in my clearances just like before, but now as I go through and process this toolpath, I'm just going to turn off my vector so it's a little bit cleaner for you guys to see. As it gets further and further down, it's going to tilt away from that wall to avoid hitting that holder in there. It's now a nice clean toolpath with no gouges, and it's going to go all the way through that toolpath. Nice and clean, and you can even notice that as it gets closer to center where it's not going to gouge, it's going to go back to a vertical orientation because it doesn't need to tilt away anymore. It can be nice and handy, and that should handle most of the parts that are out there for people. Let's shut down 2 of these Mastercams here. More things that we've added to the multi-axis side would be more to the roughing side. So, you know, we're constantly talking about this dynamic motion and how it can save a lot of time and be so much easier and more efficient on your machine. Well, now we've come out with that on the multi-axis side. So I'm just going to flop over here and just show you some on this part. So this part right now, we're just going to rough out this cavity. It's a rectangular slot, but it's curved around. And you got these bosses in there as well. So we can actually do a multi-axis roughing where it does a dynamic toolpath to rough it out. So it's going to do even the micro lift and pick out the corners. You can do zigzag or one way, just like in the 2D and 3D side, and just rough that out nice and efficiently. For the guys that might have a little bit older 5-axis machines, you could do the same thing, but in more of a conventional style 5-axis roughing. So it's doing a pocketing, more of a conventional offset pocketing type of toolpath, working its way from the inside all the way out. Quick and easy. Get that job done. We've also added a lot more things to be safe when calculating these toolpaths. Especially in the 5-axis world, the last thing you want to do is smack, a tool into the part or any of that type of stuff when transitioning from one side to another. So we've added our safety zone. So if I go and open up another session Mastercam, thought I had this one open as well. That was our safety zone. Oh, let me just open that file up. So what you guys are used to seeing is, toolpath one side and then backplot's just going to jump to the other side. And you're going to say, I hope that that's clear. It might not be, might be. You see something like this where maybe I would need to just increase my retract all the way back a significant amount, and hopefully the machine kinematics would traverse from there. Now what we've done is we can go and define out our safety zone, subcategory linking safety zone. So I'm telling it a sphere around my part, transition in full 5-axis mode, and you get something that's going to look like this. I can do my cut, and then it's going to retract out to the outer perimeter of that sphere, and then transition around in that safety zone, and then go to my next cut. And I can bounce side to side all day long, and I know that I will be safe and won't cause a crash. I'm sure your boss will be very happy to hear that as well. Another thing that's been added into our multi-axis toolpaths, some of the guys might have seen this in prior versions in the 2D and 3D world, is our tool inspection. It does require a post change to kind of toggle this on and really utilize whatever you want it to do. Basically what it can do is, let's just say maybe I got a long cycle. I could tell it in X amount of inches of cut or X amount of minutes of cuts, I want to do some sort of tool inspection routine. Maybe it's something as basic of just doing a G91, G28, Z0, M00. So, waits for the operator to check out the tool, check out the part, make sure everything's all good, and then continue on. Or we can even toggle it to utilize, laser tool sensors and touch probes to, pull a probe routine and go check out that tool for itself. So that's now added into the multi-axis world, and it's also been on the 3D and 2D world. So if you are interested, contact Norbert, and he'll give you the lowdown on it. Before jumping into the lathe side, I just want to check, Matt, do we got any questions going on? Okay. So just want to bounce into the lathe. So there's been a couple of new enhancements to the lathe side. One of the big things is utilizing stock models. These guys have been on the milling side since X6. Not sure how many of you guys are fully utilizing them for your toolpaths to reference and optimize the toolpath. But now we can actually run these inside of the lathe and have it do a stock model off of the lathe toolpaths. So that way my mill toolpaths can reference where the stock has already been removed and be quick and optimal. So nice new feature for that. Other enhancements would be our contour roughing. It's a new roughing strategy, as well as incremental depth cuts. So I'm going to go into each one of those. So contour roughing, I'm just going to go right to a file on this one. So give me 1 second to pull that up. So contour roughing, maybe I got this basic profile over here. I can actually tell it and say, okay, instead of doing just a standard, G71, G70 cycle where it's just going from the face all the way back, face all the way back, face all the way back, I can now tell it to do a contour roughing. So it's basically just doing offset passes from my finished profile, and it's doing complete offset passes. So a little bit more optimal, a lot less wasted time going back and forth like your standard CAN cycle would be. And we can still trim that up to our stock profile to cut out some of the extra air cutting as well. So this area I need 4 or 5 passes versus this top section over here I only need 1. So trim that back to the stock and you're all good to go. Another new feature that we added in for our lathe side is doing our incremental depth cuts. Everybody looks and says, well, what do we really need incremental depth cuts for? Well, when you start taking bigger slugs of material that are really pushing the capacity of your machine, when you start roughing out, maybe I'm doing 303 or 304 stainless, at a 5-inch diameter. The first pass, even though I know I could probably take 100,000 depth of cut, but the first pass is going to really peg that spindle load just because of the mass that I'm also turning. So now what we can actually do is inside of my toolpath, instead of just saying equal steps, I can say do an incremental depth cut and a final depth cut. So first pass at 0.35 of a millimeter and last pass at 2 millimeter. And it's going to incrementally work its way down from that first pass to the last pass. As you can see, it starts at a nice tight toolpath, and it's going to work to deeper and deeper tool passes each time. Going to make it so you can keep an even spindle load on your machine and never over-engage. About all I had for the lathe side as well. I'm going to turn this back over to Matt. I know he's got a thing or two to say, so hold on one second.
All right, guys, that's about all we had as far as the software goes. I just kind of wanted some housekeeping items and wrapping this up, basically. One of the kind of tips we want to go over that we were showing in the in-person rollouts is a lot of people have been asking, is there any sort of theme setup to X8? They may not like that kind of flat design or how the icons look and things like that, and there's actually a way to switch this, and it's kind of a hidden feature right now. It's going to be available in X9, but it's more of what they're going to call Mastercam themes going forward. And right now it's called an app look setting, which is in your workspace file. So this page here in the new Mastercam forum has an example of what all these look like. So you can go to like a real dark theme. I think Dave uses app look number 8, which kind of gives a little more contrast between the toolbars. But if you go to your Documents folder here in your My MCAM X8 file and you go to your Config folder, you have all your workspace files. So by default, your workspace is going to be the design workspace. So you can open that in a text editor, in the Simco editor, really anything you use to edit text with. So you edit with your text editor, and when it's open here, it's the very first setting. And you basically have to save this file and restart it, and the options are 1 through 12. And if you guys want more info on it, send me an email and I can send you that link to the Mastercam forum, or one of the tech guys can walk you through on how setting it. But you basically change that number, set the file, and then you can get the toolbars to look at one of these various settings here. That's kind of our one little tip of the day. And then kind of the final items here. Let me just made my slide here. A lot of people take advantage of the Simco Edit Professional. What we call the OEM version is built into the Mastercam software, but what a lot of people didn't know about, and I don't think we maybe made note of it as much as we could, but you can upgrade your Simco editor to the Pro version for $250. And you can tie that to as many Mastercam seats as you have. So if you have 3 seats of Mastercam, you can get 3 seats of the Edit Pro at $250 a pop. Normally it's, I believe, $550 per seat for their professional version of the editor. But I have a little PDF here of what you can get with the professional version and like what's included with Mastercam. So the big feature that a lot of the guys use is there's a G-code back plotter. So if you have, a 3-axis mill file, maybe it was created way back in the day and you have no idea what it is, you can load it up in the Simco software and it'll actually show you the toolpath motion. There's also some shop floor features in there, like you can rotate and mirror toolpaths right inside the Simco software without having to take it back to Mastercam and reprogram and repost it and things like that. But since we've announced it at the in-person rollouts, we've been kind of selling these like hotcakes, because guys have always want to kind of get their hands on that professional version of the editor. And the maintenance on it is $45 a year, so it's a relatively cheap option to kind of expand how you guys interface with Mastercam and the NC files in the shop. And then to some of the other things here, we're doing any software purchases through the end of the year here are no payments. So we know a lot of people might have stuff that they want to get, and it's just not in the budget for this year. So we can bump those out until next year so you can get it in the door. We're also offering free on-site training, and it kind of depends on what you're purchasing. So you'd want to talk to either me, Kim, or Todd. If you guys were looking to add a seat or maybe upgrade from Mill 1 to Mill 3, or a lot of people have been adding the multi-axis with those 3 to 5-axis toolpaths, we can get you some on-site training done at no cost and have Dave out there, one of the other tech guys, help you out. And we've also had a lot of people asking, a lot of our multi-axis training has been done custom on-site at the customer, but a lot of guys have been asking, if we could hold our class again where we go over just, the general multi-axis strategies and what's available in the 3 to 5 axis that Dave was talking about, and all this, the other general strategies in there. So on Monday, Tuesday, November 24th, 25th, right before Thanksgiving, we will be holding a class here. It also comes with our Intro to Multi-Axis training manual for you to take home. So if you guys want any info on that, send an email to sales@shopware.com or any one of us here individually, and we can help you out. But that's about all we had, and I think we're getting pretty close to noon here. I'm sure you guys are getting hungry like me. So we'll leave the floor open now if anybody wants to type in any questions. Dave and I can hopefully answer them for you. Let's see here. I think we might have got one. Arlen asked about the setup sheets. So the setup sheets are still the active reports. There's a default one built into the system for both mill and lathe, and I think a couple of the other products. What we tell people to do, and kind of how I was talking about our website, let me get out of this warning here. If I go to our website here, if you go under Support, Downloads, there is a page here called Setup Sheets Active Reports, and that'll prompt you for that same password. It's the ShopWare X8 password, and these work in all recent X versions of Mastercam, and it has the path here of where to install the files, and each one of these has a preview of what they look like. So if I can go to like the mill GUI one here, it'll give you a preview once it downloads of what that setup is. There's a picture of the part, comments, a kind of condensed tool list. This is a really simple tool list one, and really these setup sheets are all fully customizable. So at the bottom of this page there's a download for the tutorial, and it works off of a program. If any of you guys are familiar with Crystal reports or like XML reports, it's a kind of graphical editor of how to change it, but we know a lot of guys don't want to spend in there, either teach themselves how to edit it or, set them up for their particular company. So it is a service that we offer. So if you guys have an idea of what you want the setup sheet to look like, I've had guys draw it on a sheet and fax it to me, or something that they're using currently, can Mastercam support this style setup sheet. So if you want to shoot us something, we can give you an idea of, how many hours it would take to customize. Usually it's 3 or 4 hours tops of customization. So, a couple $100 for us to set these up exactly how you guys want. We can add your company logo on it and really anything you want to customize as far as the setup sheets go. I hope that answered your question, Marlon. Let's see, do we have any other questions?
I was asking about our demo discs. If we offer demo discs, it would be the Home Learning Edition.
Oh, so the Home Learning Edition, we don't do the DVDs anymore. You really just have to download it off the website here. So if you go to the support, downloads, protected downloads page, it's downloadable right here. You can download it and burn it to a disk if you wanted to. We changed the way that we host our files. We actually host them now through this Amazon S3 setup, so it's really kind of the world's most reliable download. So no matter how slow of an internet speed you have, it'll reliably download the file and you'll be able to get it. Any other questions? If not, we'll probably end the webinar. And like I said, there will be a recording of this on the website up probably later today, however long it takes YouTube to convert it for us. And that's on our What's New page here. So if you always go to this page, I always try to keep it up to date with anything that's coming out. So like our webinar I announced on here, whenever any updates or new versions come out, I announce on the page. Any of our in-person events. We had that Akuma event back in October. I announced on this page. So this is usually a good page to bookmark and just kind of keep an eye on. All these also automatically get posted to our Facebook and Twitter pages that are at the bottom of our website here. So any new things that are coming out, we announce them through here. If you use any of the new social media stuff. But other than that, looks like we went a couple minutes over. But thanks you all for attending, and hope to talk to you guys soon. Thanks.